few weeks ago, I lost my phone, and right when I lost it, I instantly knew it was a sign to let it be where it wanted to be for however long it wanted to be there for. Whether that was for the day or a couple days, and it actually ended up being a whole week without my phone. And there was a lot of great stuff that happened during that week that I want to talk about. And when I finally found my phone, or rather when my mom found it, it was in her room. That's where I misplaced it. When I finally held it in my hands, I was like, I already know this in my head, obviously, but I was like, wow, yeah, it really is a piece of technology, just like a remote or a clock or my hard drive, my laptop, or anything else. But it doesn't feel that way. It feels like a lot more than just a piece of technology. It feels like it's a part of us. It doesn't feel like a remote. It doesn't feel like a clock. It doesn't feel like the TV. It feels like it's a part of us. But it was only because I spent a week without it, totally without it, that when I held it, that became a lot more explicit to me. Now, it makes sense why we are pulled to this piece of technology. It's because it simulates life. It's not like this is just something random out there that for some reason seems to be grabbing our attention. It's very much a primal thing. Everything from the phone is just everything from this real world in some kind of shape or form. It simulates some kind of video or image or experience that we are used to, that we have an inherent connection with. That's why we have a connection to it through the phone. That's why there's this attachment and this sort of like a moth to the light kind of relationship with the phone. And so it's feeding this part of us that's actually necessary. It's actually a part that I would say is quite beautiful. It's this desire for exploration, for curiosity, for magic, for excitement, for joy. And there's a great quote from The Matrix, which is, "To deny our impulses is to deny the very thing that makes us human." And I love that so much, because it's not about denying impulses. It's about understanding our desires and impulses. And then through that understanding, being able to build a better relationship with those desires and with those impulses, and to understand where they're coming from and how we can best feed them. I actually made a video on this, substitutions for scrolling, with this kind of philosophy in my Patreon video series, Journal Entries, which if you want to check that out, you might be interested in a series of videos and journal and prompts where I talk about different ideas and principles in this life and get you to think on them, meditate on them, and journal about them to get your own answers about those ideas. So during this time without the phone, I had to satisfy these parts of myself without the phone in other ways, in healthier ways. Like I said, I felt like I was living off of an inner power. This idea, this phrase, inner power, living off my inner power, that's what kept repeating throughout my head during that week. And the best way I can describe what that means, inner power, is like imagining something being charged by something. So if you were to charge your phone, or if you were to charge an electric car, or charge a laptop, or charge anything else with batteries or a wire or electricity, where's that power coming from? Where's that fuel coming from? Without my phone, it felt like I was living off of this inner fuel, like I was being charged by myself, something intrinsic deep within me. And these ideas and these thoughts were dominating my headspace throughout that week. These important ideas for my own journey, for my own life, as it relates to my own creative work, to my relationships, to what I want to do, to what I'm trying to do, my goals and what I'm trying to achieve right now. It was like these big ideas and principles were at the forefront of my mind during this week, which their strength and their vividness was so explicit because the phone wasn't there. There wasn't some kind of noise obscuring this truth. And these strong principles at the forefront of my mind, these strong ideas, came from a combination of ideas, intuitive ideas that had been coming to me during this time, noticing the world around me, my awareness of things around me, being inspired by things around me, seeing signs out in the world, having conversations with friends, and then listening to my own feelings during those conversations, just seeing what was generally arising from my subconscious. And all of these different sources of input were accumulating into these big ideas. And for the past few years, I've experienced this, working with my intuition, the inner whisper, noticing signs out into the world, seeing the spirituality of my life. But the difference here was really the consistency and the vividness and the strength, the duration of time that this inner power had to take shape. And this all really emphasized to me the validity of my inner power, because these big ideas and principles, they were just effortlessly arising within the space that was just there without the phone, which is pretty incredible. It's like some kind of ball that's underwater, and all you got to do is let it go, and then it's just going to effortlessly rise to the surface and reveal itself. That's pretty beautiful. And I mentioned how this week without the phone had lasting impacts during the days and weeks after, including today, where I am right now. And the reason why is because of what I decided to do during this week without the phone, which was decentralization. If you think about it, all of our tasks are connected and binded to this one cellular device, whether it's checking the time or texting someone or calling someone or looking at the weather or searching something up or setting an alarm. Like all of these things, that it's much more than just texting and calling and looking at social media. It's a lot of other practical things. So there's no wonder why we carry it around with us everywhere. But also in the same way with how technology works in general, the more it empowers you, it's like a double-edged sword, because then you can't do that thing without that piece of technology. So I made an intentional effort to decentralize my phone and make sure that I could do certain things without just carrying my phone around with me everywhere. And it all started with music.
Dopo una tempesta, bell'aria fresca, paragiana festa. Che bella cosa una giornata sole. Mannato sole, che bello, oh sole mio, sono fronte a te.
So I have an old radio in my bedroom that I love to listen to. I listen to this oldies station with this classic, or these oldies music that just put me in an incredible vibe when I put on the radio. But I would never listen to radio in the car because I'd always have my phone with me. So it just was the obvious, explicit thing to do. Just put on Spotify, put on Bluetooth, which is so funny because that's such a weird thing of, like, you have this technology, you have this thing that feels limitless, but in a way it's kind of limiting because it just subconsciously limits you to you just using that one thing without considering other possibilities. So for the first time in forever, I listened to the radio in my car because I didn't have my phone with me. And I actually loved it because it felt like I had more freedom. I had less control, but I had more freedom. I wasn't overthinking in my head, oh, am I enjoying the song enough? Could I change this song? Should I change this song? I can change it to whatever I want. I have access to any song in the world right now, I could just, but when there's so many options available to you, then kind of takes away from just simplicity and just surrendering to whatever's there right now. When I listen to car radio, I just accept the song that's playing. And hey, like if I really don't like the song, or if there's ads playing, like sometimes they would run ads for like minutes on end, I would just turn off the radio and I would just listen to the wind. I would listen to the car. I would just drive in silence. And if I really wanted to play songs on demand, I put a bunch of songs. I downloaded songs from the internet and I just put them on this little SSD card. But it's nice because it's kind of like, a more advanced cassette, obviously. But it's simple. It's just got a set amount of songs that I can just play that whenever I want. So this is really where the decentralization started. And that inspired me to find out other things that I could do without my phone. So I got this Tascam audio recorder out of my closet, which I got during college for film school, but I hadn't used it in years. And I love using Voice Memos app on my phone because I record down long ideas that I have in the moment that I either don't really want to write down, or just melodies that I come up with in my head that I got to sing out because I don't read music, so it's not like I would know at the moment how to write down the notes. So I started using this Tascam audio recorder, which has been awesome. And it's honestly been a better experience than using the Voice Memos app. Because the other thing is with using the phone, no matter what you're doing on there, there's this kind of general association that you have with using the phone, which puts you in this sort of state. It's hard to articulate, but it's like this kind of sleepy state, or this like brain killing state. It's like even if you're going to do something productive on the phone, because the general dynamic and relationship that you have with the phone is going to dominate that action. And for most of us, including myself, it would just be impulsive, right? Impulsive phone usage. So that's the sort of state that's just going to inherently be a part of whatever reason or interaction you're having with the phone. So using the Tascam recorder as opposed to the Voice Memos app was just so nice. It was cleaner. It just felt more, I don't know, it just felt like it was me and my thoughts. It wasn't like there's this impeding force in my hands. It was just me and the idea. That's it. And this thing is just capturing it. There's no other intentions here. I continued to carry around my pocket journals and hand write down ideas that I had, as opposed to, just using the Notes app on my phone. I would bring around this clock from my desk, this hand clock, that would tell me the time, since I wouldn't be able to tell the time. I've also considered getting an iPod at some point, so I can listen to music if I want to, maybe at the gym or something. But I think really just this act of decentralization has been the big difference, because when I found my phone, I was still able to just either leave it home or just shut it off, even if I brought it with me, because now I don't need it for all these just basic things that I would be used to be doing. And I think the real big takeaway and big theme, at least for me, is thinking about this idea of how we define advanced, what makes something advanced, and how we associate advanced technology, quote unquote, the advanced technology that's coming out today, with what's actually best or what's better for our own situation. Because there's such thing as too much salt in a dish, right? If you put too much salt on a dish, then it's no longer going to taste good. It's just going to be too salty. It's going to be too much. It's going to be like, ugh. So like, at what point does too much technology just get like, ugh? When do you cut back? When do you bring simplicity and retro to your items that you bring with you out into this world? It seems like centralization is the big thing. ChatGPT being a more centralized source of information than Google. And the phone being a centralized thing for all these things that we do. So then the balance to that would be decentralization. And that's kind of what I'm learning and seeing and experiencing in my own life right now. I think there's a reason why we, as a human race, we've made so much art and so many movies about robots, about AI, about creations overtaking its own human creators. Because I think in the collective conscious, subconsciously, we all feel this myth of humanity and its creation that's unfolding. I think we know it's coming. And this over-dependence thing with technology is definitely on a collective level, but it's only because it's on an individual level. The individuals make up the collective. And I think the real way we consciously take control of our relationship with technology is by not becoming over-dependent on it and looking at our own choices that we make day to day with the technologies that we have in our lives. So I think just meditating on these ideas of, What makes something more advanced? What makes something better and more appropriate for my own life? What do I actually need? Is more better? Is the fact that I can lose one little thing the size of my hand and then I suddenly can't do all of these basic tasks, is that real power? Is that actual power? Is that making me more powerful? Where is the power coming from? We create the culture that governs the world. We, the individuals, we create this culture. And we have to decide consciously how we want to approach everything that's happening with our creations today. And not just take what the world gives us for granted and not question it, but to do our own self-introspection and reflection on our own relationships with these things. So, check within, check inwards, and maybe this story inspires you in a nice way. I know it's definitely changed a lot of things in my life, which I've always wanted to do for the past few years, but now it's actually happening, and it's really incredible to live through right now. So thank you for listening, and I wish you guys the very best in your own journeys with your creative work, with your lives, with your moments that pass you by. Savor each day, live for the day, show up for today, and you'll be able to show up for your life. I'll catch you guys in the next one. As always, God bless, dream on, and peace out.